Okay. Alright, so they wiped the board. That's totally fine, because that gave me that. It also gives me Kumano, and it also gives me the win with Squee. And that is why we play Harried Spearard.
Hi, how y'all doing? So this is my first video since coming back from being away because I was sick. And wouldn't you know it, I started unpacking all of my gear and I find that my usual camera is broken. The little connector that I use to plug it into my laptop is broken, so I have to go get a new camera. So until then, unfortunately, you're not going to have any kind of like face cam during the games, but I wanted to hop on here, use my phone to record this a little bit to let you guys know what's going on and why you're not going to be seeing my face during the games. All the audio is working perfectly fine, everything else is great, it's just there's no camera to use. So for the time being, it is what it is, right? So either way, I still hope you enjoy the games and you get some value out of these videos. So I'm going to keep pumping out new decks and new videos and things like that. I've got a series coming up with a focus on new players, because we've got a lot of new people coming to the game recently because another game, honestly another one of my favorite games, died recently. So we're going to have a lot of new people coming into the game. So I wanted to put up a line of budget videos to welcome you guys to the game, and hopefully you guys can get some value out of it as well. So let's go play some games.
Okay, so this is what I would go for in building a budget mono red aggressive deck. This is the first thing that I would put my my wildcards towards in building my first deck. And this is a budget build, and when I say budget, what I mean is 15 or fewer rares and mythics in the deck total. And this deck falls within those lines. This is a deck with exactly 15 rares and mythics. And I'll show you which ones they are right now. So right here, Bloodthirsty Adversary. There's 3 of them. Then you have 2 of Feldon. And then we have 2 of Squee, 2 Chandra, 3 Goddric, a single Sokenzan, and 2 Mishra's Foundry. That is 15 rares and mythics in the deck total. Now, this deck is going to be great for a new player just getting into the game because it's cheap, it's easy to build, and it will win you games quickly and help you not only climb the ladder to get better rewards at the end of the season, but will also not break the bank. Like you're not going to have to spend a whole lot, if any, money building this deck. It's really cheap, it's really effective, and you can use it to grind out your daily wins every day until you have enough wild cards or currency to spend on a different deck that you might want to build. So let's go over. We've got 2 Harried Spearard. This is in here because it's a 1/1 attacker on turn 1, and it leaves behind a rat if it dies. So it's a little bit of a difficult thing to work around for a control player, especially if they are relying on board wipes or sacrifice effects. Just having this on the board in the early turns is going to cause a little bit of a headache for a control player. Running up next, we got Kumano faces Kakkazan, 4 of those. We also have 4 Monastery Swiftspear, one of the premier creatures in this deck. This is a deck you definitely want to have this card turn 1. 4 copies of Monstrous Rage. This is going to give a creature +2/+0 until end of turn, and then also create a monster roll attached to that creature. So what that is it's a token enchantment that goes directly onto the creature and gives that creature +1/+1 and trample. So for 1 mana, you're getting a total of +3/+1 and trample for the turn. And if you happen to be casting that on Monastery Swiftspear, that's an additional +1/+1 because of prowess. It's a really, really solid combo and can end games, honestly, before they begin. Next up, we have 4 copies of Phoenix Chick, 1/1 Flying Haste. It can't block, but you're not blocking in this deck. 4 copies to Play with Fire, 1 damage, deal 2 damage to anything. If you throw it at your opponent, you can just scry with it. So it's got a little upside there. It's making it slightly better than Shock. Then we have 3 copies of Bloodthirsty Adversary. This is a 2/2 for only 2 mana. It has haste, so it can attack the turn it comes into play. But it has a secondary ability. If you pay 2 colorless and a red on top of its casting cost, so that's 5 total, you get to cast a instant or sorcery from your graveyard with mana value 3 or less for free. So basically you recast Lightning Strike or Monstrous Rage or Play with Fire or any of your burn spells to get that last bit of damage into your opponent. You got 2 copies of Feldon here. The reason this is 2 copies instead of 3 is 1 is a legendary creature, and 2, this is typically a creature that your opponent does not want to block because it gives you value based off of the amount of damage that Feldon receives. So typically they're going to want to make you sacrifice Feldon or use a hard removal spell that doesn't involve damage. So that's why Feldon's only at 2 of in here, because typically with Feldon, if you have too many in your deck, there's going to be times when you're going to be holding too many of these in your hand, and that's not something you want. You want to be churning through cards in your hand as quickly as possible with this deck. Speaking of quickly as possible, Lightning Strike, there's 4 of them. It deals 3 damage to any target, costs 2 mana. It's a good card. Then we got 2 copies of Squee, the Dubious Monarch. For 2 colorless and a red, you get a 2/2 Hasting Goblin that whenever it attacks, it creates a 1/1 red goblin that is also tapped and attacking. Pretty good. 2 copies of Chandra here. Chandra is the only planeswalker in the deck, and it's in here for 2 reasons. One is its first +1 ability says add 1 red mana, so it's a little bit of ramp. You get a little more mana. And it says Chandra, Dressed to Kill, deals 1 damage to up to 1 target player or planeswalker. So you +1 it to deal 1 to your opponent or their planeswalker, and get a little extra mana in case you're mana starved. And the second one is just straight up value. Exile the top card of your library. If it's red, you may cast it this turn. You still have to pay the mana to cast the spell, but basically this reads draw a card, because your deck's going to be red unless you happen to draw a mountain, which it may look red, but it's not. Lands are colorless. So if Chandra reveals a mountain off the top, you won't be able to do anything with it. But if you can draw anything else off the top from your deck, then you'll be able to cast it that turn. Then we have 3 copies of Goddric. Goddric is a great closer. So on his own, he's a 3/3 with haste for only 3 mana. Not too bad. But he has an ability called Celebration. And Celebration reads, as long as 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control this turn, Goddric Cloaked Reveler is a dragon with base power and toughness 4/4, flying, and 1 red mana, dragon 2 control, get +1/+0 until end of turn. He's the only dragon in the deck, so it's only going to affect him. So basically, you're going to want to play him on a turn where either Kumano faces Kakkazan has flipped over and become a creature, or on a turn where Squee has attacked and created an additional... well, actually, no, that wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense. What you'd do is you'd play Goddric first, then have Squee attack, creating the token, and that's going to trigger Celebration and make him into a 4/4 flyer. That's how you want to play that. Aside from that, for lands, you got 19 mountains, a single Sokenzan. Sokenzan is in here as just a one of, because its ability can be useful, but it's not something that you lean on. Its ability is Channel, so you pay 3 colorless, a red, and you discard this card, and it creates 2 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens. They gain haste until end of turn. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control, of which there are a few. You got Goddric, you got Squee, you got Feldon. Those are all legendary creatures, and if they're on the table, they reduce this cost by 1 for each one that there's on the table. So you could discard this for only a single red mana and get 2 dudes. Not too bad. So you can use that defensively to put a blocker into the table, but in most cases, this is going to be an offensive play. And last, we got 2 copies of Mishra's Foundry. It's a colorless land. You can tap it to add a colorless mana, or you can pay 2 And Mishra's Foundry becomes a 2/2 assembly worker artifact creature until end of turn. It's still a land. And then you could pay 1 and tap. Target attacking assembly worker gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So basically, you're going to pay the 2 to make this into a 2/2 creature. Now, the last ability will only come into play if you have a second Mishra's Foundry on the table. So you would pay 2 to animate 1 Foundry, and then you'd pay 1 mana and tap another Foundry to make this into a 4/4. That's the only time you're going to be using that ability. In most cases, you're just going to pay 2 to attack for 2. So in situations where your opponent has wiped your board and you are left with nothing in your hand, you still at least have Mishra's Foundry on the table to attack for those last bits of damage, and hopefully steal a win that way. So that's it. That's the rundown for this deck. It's very fast, very low to the ground. You're going to steal a lot of wins with this deck just by playing the first like 3 turns. So let's go and take it out there. I'm going to play some games, and I'll show you how this deck works. Okay, so for our first hand of the game, it looks pretty decent. We got 2 mountains, a Harried Spearard, play with fire, lightning strike, Chandra, and Squee. So we don't have a turn 2 play, but we do have 2 removal spells to play against our opponent if we need to. And then we have turn 3 is going to be probably Squee. So let's keep it and see what happens. Alright, cool. We get to go first. So we can play Mountain into Harried Spearard. We're going to swing for 1. Get some damage on the board. Okay, our opponent plays a Plains, and they're going to play a 2/1 Recruitment Officer. Alright, we're going to play 1. And we're going to swing in first and see if they block. They do not. So we will end turn and wait to see what they do. Okay, they play a Cavern of Souls naming Human. So it looks like they're playing Human Tribal here. Let's just remove that. They play Baird. Okay. Alright, our turn. We go land for turn, and we are going to play... Do we want Goddric, or do we want Squee? I think we want Goddric right now, because they can't really deal with the 3/3. Alright, deal 3. Alright, they play Mountain. And they swing in for 2. We will not block. And they don't do anything else, so that's good for us. Alright, so now we're going to go with Squee Bob. And then when we attack, Squee is going to create a creature, and that's going to transform Goddric. So swing in. Alright, Goddric is now a 4/4. Okay, they play a Sokenzan to create 2 1/1s. Let's see how they choose to block. They are choosing not to block. Okay, so this is probably that Boros Convoke deck that I've been seeing around. So they're probably going to want to use that to Convoke later on. So let's go ahead and add that 5th damage in. So let's see what they do with this turn. Intrepid Adversary. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so they're going to swing in pretty hard. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we are going to... Okay. I think we kind of have to do like this. So if we Lightning Strike that to get rid of the life gain. So we're going to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they're likely going to use this to block here. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we use Monstrous Rage to get the last point of damage. Alright, so let's start with a Lightning Strike right there. Make sure they can't get any life. And... Alright. Guess we don't need to do the math on that one. Okay, so... This one... It's a 1-land hand, and I'm really tempted to keep it, because I have plays with it. I'm going to keep it and see if we can make this work off of a single land. Alright. Okay, so we're up against Mono Blue. Mono Blue is the only deck that plays Sleight of Hand. Okay, we drew a second land. That's fine. Let's go ahead and play the Monastery Swiftspear. And attack for 1. Alright, pay 2. Playing Sleight of Hand again. It looks like nothing else is happening. Alright, let's go here, and we're going to play... Ooh. Okay, so here's the thing, is we play Kumano faces Kakkazan. And if we don't draw a land, that second portion of it is going to be kind of wasted. But I don't really have any other good plays at the moment. So we're going to play Kumano. Monastery Swiftspear is going to get a +1. And we're going to attack for 2. And they don't do anything about it. Alright. So, I'm going to let that 2 damage go through. And... okay, so they are considering their options. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play with Fire them while they're tapped out so they can't counter it. Okay, that mountain is staying right there. Alright, they discarded an island. Or surveil away one. Play an island. Alright, what are they going to do? Alright. Alright, so we got 3. They're going to counter whatever I cast. So, I'm going to start by attacking for 1. Okay, so I'll cast Monstrous Rage on it. Swing. Do they do anything about it? They don't. I'm very surprised. Okay, end turn. Alright. They're not quite tapped out yet. They could have a Spell Pierce. Okay, play Tolarian Terror. Let's see here. Sweet Tolarian Terror. Alright, so end of their turn. I'm going to blast them. Phoenix Chick stays, so I need a flyer. Okay, but now that they are tapped out, well, tapped out to a point where they can't counterspell this. So we're going to attack. Get them down to 3. The great thing about Mono Blue is they have no way to gain life. So all I have to do is draw a lightning blast and it's game over. Close enough. Alright, let's go Kakkazan. Okay, they're gonna stutter. Counter target spell was 2. Okay, you don't have any fairies, so I'll pay the 2. Alright, it comes in. Puts them down to 2. So we're just gonna attack with all of them. If they don't have a bounce spell, then the game's over. Game's over. Nice. Mono Blue is a hard deck to beat. Okay, so we have 3 mountains. Kumano faces Kakkazan, so that's probably going to be our first turn play. Monstrous Rage, Phoenix Chick, Goddric. Yeah, so we'll play Kumano turn 1. Turn 2 is going to be Phoenix Chick, so we can capitalize on part 2 of the saga. And that way we're not missing out on any damage either. Alright, they play a Thran Portal. I'm playing it as a Plains. Playing Novice Inspector. Okay, comes in and investigates. Alright, Mountain. Phoenix Chick. Okay, let's swing. Attack for 2. Okay, we go to Blocker's Step. We'll go ahead and Monstrous Rage it. hit for 5. Okay, so next turn, Kumano face Kakkazan is going to come back as Etching of Kumano, which is going to trigger Goddric right there. So we can play him as a 4/4 dragon next turn. Oh, they're going to play the Dusk Rose Reliquary and exile our dude. That's totally fine. Okay, and they chose not to attack. Alright, Kumano comes back. Play our Mountain for the turn, and play Goddric as well. And now we attack with everything. Alright, they go to 6. Got a 6 on turn 3 is not too shabby. Alright, Warden of the Inner Sky. Okay. Warden is really good with that right there. I like that. That's a good play. Voldaran Epicure. Alright. Okay, so tap some stuff to get a +1 on the Warden. Alright, let's go Mountain, Phoenix check. And then we Monstrous Rage, the Phoenix check. So, Goddric animated because this enchantment is a token that came into play. So that's 2 permanents, Celebration triggers, and we attack. And that's game. Turn 4 wins. Not too bad. Okay, so we're looking at 2 mountains. Monastery Swiftspear, a Monstrous Rage, a Phoenix Chick, and 2 Play with Fire. So that's an entire hand of single red casting costs. Let's keep it. Alright, and we get to go first, which is amazing. Monastery Swiftspear, all attack. So, and next turn, we're going to play Phoenix Chick and Monstrous Rage. Oh, Hopeless Nightmare. Okay. So we're going to discard a Play with Fire. Alright. Mountain. Phoenix Chick. Monstrous Rage. And attack for 6. Bing bing. Okay, Virus Beetle. Alright. We will discard the Mountain. Alright, play Mishra's Foundry, and then we will Play with Fire that. Prowess gives an additional +1, and we attack for 4. And end the turn. Alright, now our hand is empty, so you can't really threaten us with discard anymore. You're gonna sacrifice the Hopeless Nightmare. Nice, just passing the turn. Alright, let's go Mountain. Let's go and animate the Mishra's Foundry. And then we attack. Alright, go for the throw. Alright, that's gone. And you take 3. They're kind of like pushed back into a corner right now, so they can't really advance their game plan a whole lot. Okay, so they use Malicious Eclipse and cast a Hopeless Nightmare. Alright, cool. Feldon is here. We attack for 2. End turn. Pass. My turn. Alright. Mountain. Animate. And let's see if they have removal. So otherwise that's lethal. Okay, they're going to Edict. So I'm going to let that resolve. And we'll sacrifice Feldon. Still attack for 2. End the turn. The reason why I sacrifice Feldon instead of the land is because they've shown us that they are using Go for the Throat, and Go for the Throat cannot target artifact creatures. Alright, they're going to sacrifice something. Alright. We really need to draw some burn to end this game. My turn. I think that works. Yeah, we got play with fire. Alright, Bloodthirsty comes in. We're going to pay for it. And we're going to cast Play with Fire. We cast it, targeting you. Good game, friend. That one got a little shaky. Wow. Okay. 3 mountains. Harried Spearard. Monstrous Rage, Feldon, Squee. It's got a good curve. I'm going to keep it. And we get to go first, which is fantastic. There we go. Take your 1. Okay, their land comes to play tapped. That's good for us. Let's go with Feldon. Attack for 3. Alright, so they're holding up 2 mana, so that is demonstrating that they can play a spell that's going to counter something unless we pay 2 mana. So we're going to play this card right here. Okay, so the fact that they held priority there told me that they had a response for it. So we're not going to cast anything else this turn. Alright, we attack for 3. Or 4, I mean. Oh, Cathar. Okay. Alright, flashing him in. You're going to block Feldon? I'm into it. Now, when a Feldon receives damage, I exile cards from the top of my library equal to the amount of damage done. So it's going to be 3. And until the end of your next turn, I can play that card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Monstrous Rage that to give him trample. Okay, I'm going to choose Kumano faces Kakkazan, and I'm going to play it right now, because he's tapped out and he can't stop me. Alright, they're playing another land. That land is a tapped land, thankfully. That helps me out. Okay, 4th land. We're going to play Bloodthirsty Adversary. We're going to attack again. Alright, they go to 4. And notice how that attack just went through really quick. Like, they didn't hold priority at all. That told me they didn't have anything to do. So that means that that one thing they held priority on was the Cathar Commando, because it had flash. Okay. Alright, so they wiped the board. That's totally fine, because that gave me that. It also gives me Kumano, and it also gives me the win with Squee. And that is why we play Harried Spearard. He didn't want to get hit. Harried Spearard is great against control decks. Okay, so here we are with the post-game wrap, and I'd like to give you my thoughts on this deck and how it performed today. So, we didn't lose a single game. The closest we came to losing a game was a game against Mono Black. They did some kind of like discard control thing. And I'm sure that deck is decent and would do well against a different kind of deck, but this deck just comes in way too hard and way too fast. So, really, best performers for this deck so far is Monastery Swiftspear, no surprise there. Monstrous Rage, really, really strong. And Goddric. Goddric is an absolute all-star for this deck. So if you're limited on wild cards, Goddric might be the first rare that you want to craft for this deck. He's really, really strong. So Harried Spearard did what I needed it to do. It helped me win a game post board sweep. So really glad that I added the Harried Spearguards into this deck, because having that rat that gets left behind is really important. Kumano faces Kakkazan, really good. Phoenix Chick is really good, especially if you get to be on the play and get that at turn 1 or turn 2 using Kumano faces Kakkazan to have it come in as a 2/2. All the burn is fantastic. Squee didn't get a whole lot of playtime with Squee, but in the games that he did show up, he did really, really well. So I'm really happy with Squee. Chandra, I'm a little on the fence about Chandra. You could probably skip running Chandra in this deck and honestly just running like a couple more burn spells, or maybe some kind of impulsive draw spell would do well. Like Chandra, I don't think she's 100% necessary for this deck. Mishra's Foundry did really well, did a great job of helping me close out a game. Yeah, and Bloodthirsty Adversary. Bloodthirsty Adversary is going to rotate this September when rotation does finally come. So if you do want to spend the wild cards to craft this, buyer beware, because this card's going to rotate in September, which isn't for like another like 4 or 5 months, something like that. So that's going to be a little bit of a risky click for you, but everything else, I believe, except for Chandra, is staying in standard. Oh, except for Sokenzan as well. So those will probably be the only ones that you'd be a little bit worried about crafting. But everything else, it's a pretty safe craft. It's a really easy deck to pilot, really cheap to build, and it just farms wins. It really does. So if you're a new player just getting into the game, this is the first deck I would point new players to. It's just so good. It really is. So that's it. That's it for the video today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you get lots of wins running this deck yourself. So until next time, you take care of yourselves.